In almost any story, there is a need to have something at stake, something a character can either risk losing or try to gain. And now sometimes that states can be emotional. Maybe it's a relationship, familiar or romantic, that the character is either at risk of losing or gaining. So simple enough to understand, and most people can probably sympathize with it. Then there may be something more or less, kind of less concrete, where it's impact or legacy, where it's like, what is the character doing with their life, or what are they going to leave behind? What is their purpose in life? Those kinds of things where a character is trying to figure themselves out, but they're maybe trying to at least kind of there's like this investment state of wondering in a sense. So it's slightly lighter states, but still something worth considering. But yet, for many stories, the states are raised through added danger. Now, this could be a villain on the rise, or basically something unknown that's out there. So, again, there's a lot you can do with the unknown where it's just like not really knowing what's going on. So, it could be anything. Or maybe it's a disaster like the volcano has exploded or whatever, earthquake. So, a lot of these things just add danger to the story and thus promotes basically the character's survival. So, that's basically a kind of stake that everyone can kind of sympathize with, identify with, the wanting to survive. Now, the problem with that is that in some stories, there may not actually be any real danger. Now, again, it's like, why am I talking about real danger in stories? But it's like the characters are actually never at stake because they always have a way out, even if it's only because the writer. For example, we can think of someone gets pushed off a cliff, but there's a trampoline at the bottom, so they are able to jump and land safely. But again, that's kind of like coincidence. That's not really something that is very cartoonish and so forth. It's like, again, it's what you would see in a cartoon. But the thing is that in a lot of stories, that can be kind of almost the cartoonish way the characters get out of the situation because they've been put up against the wall and there's no way else for them to go except by coincidence that the writer has put in there. So, kind of ways around that is that if the cavalry has to come, you set up that the cavalry is coming, and even you can show the 2 points of view so that you have people racing to the rescue, and you have the characters waiting for rescue. So there's a bit of tension in both scenes, and it can kind of ratchet up even higher than just having the characters wait for rescue. Or you can have it where the characters are actually figuring things out on their own way, or because of their own skills and abilities. And again, this isn't like they have some secret ability that they're just now revealing and was never even hinted at beforehand. Again, it should be hinted at least, or at least be a natural extension to what they already know or what they're already capable of. So that it doesn't come as a top off. It can't just be like, oh, new superpower that I've never mentioned, but I'm perfectly trained and able to use. So it's just something to really consider on kind of what you're doing with the story. And again, this depends on the type of story you're telling. Again, a lot of these kind of coincidences can work really well in cartoons because it's sort of rule of funny in a sense. But again, if in using a story you're trying to make serious, it can be a bit hard to keep believing that there really is danger or consequences in those stories. And again, that's lasting consequences. Because even if a character is wounded, they may be healed by the next episode, especially in certain settings where it's like the meta technology has so far advanced or there's healing magic. So again, wounds can be very tricky to heal, even if they normally wouldn't be in real life. So this is where a death scene can come in, because death is generally final in stories. Now there are certain stories where it's more like there's a revolving door going on, but and for most stories, death isn't the end of a character's arc and is treated as final and absolute. But what if you don't really want to tell off a major character? What if you still have a part for them to play in the story, but you still want to have the stakes be established that lives are at risk? Well, this is where the characters like the red shirts or the extras come in, where it's like, oh, the main cast is all going down to the main planet, and we're looking for a +1. Who's in? And it's just one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, the person who's going with the main cast is probably the one who's going to die. So it's just something. Now you could possibly subvert that, but to create an interesting story moment. But again, It's generally established storytelling. And the thing is, this raises the stakes with no risk, in a sense. So then you have the life-threatening situation, but so you have the stakes raised, but you aren't risking the main characters. Now, there is a problem with this, in that there may not actually be any attachment to the characters being killed off, because they're either just unknown, they're just like the extra, they're the red shirt, they may not even have a name. Or maybe if they do have a name, you're just establishing it now and building up their character story now, so to try to get the audience to sympathize with them and to connect with them before you kill them off. And then this is often the case when a background character in the story who you've seen over the years may finally be getting spotlight, and they're starting to get their backstory and all their secrets are being exposed, and they're getting potential character development, but then they get killed off in that same episode because it was all done as a tool to make you sympathize with them. So again, it's realm of bit parts, and it is kind of interesting to see what people do with it. Because the thing is that the characters may have an attachment to these characters because they've probably been working with them for years. But the audience not really, because they've either been kind of non-entities, they haven't been seen, or they've just been in the background, they haven't really connected with them. Now, on the other hand, if the audience cares about the main task of the story, they might sympathize with the kind of main task's pain at losing these other characters. So it's something to really consider about. But in regards to that, there's something that is lost when it isn't really a lasting consequences. There's no follow through or whatever. And again, this depends on what kind of story you're talking about. If you want dynamic characters versus static characters, if you want the long story arcs or the episode of nature where anyone can tune in and basically enjoy the episode of the week or even reruns. So again, it depends on what story you're talking about, whether you want more status quo or long-lasting consequences. Now, in regards to consequences, I'm not advocating that characters break down trying every episode because of what's happened, but having references and reflections on the past might just make the states they are experiencing more real in a sense, showing that there is a price to pay for either doing the right thing or the wrong thing, and that they're learning as they're drawing, they're being dynamic characters. So then that's kind of my perspective on things, and so I wanted to share my thoughts on it. Anyway, why not feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, you can like and share it so that others may enjoy as well. And if you want to see more videos like this, you can subscribe to our channel so that you can see more. Anyway, I'm Jonah, and you've been watching Lions Mane Media, where we celebrate stories and the lessons learned with them. Thank you for listening to my musings. Talk to you later, and have a great rest of your day.